What happens when the most successful late-night show on television suddenly disappears, right after its host publicly criticizes the people in power? Was this really about money, or did Stephen Colbert finally say something that became too difficult for a major corporation to tolerate? That question is exactly why the end of Stephen Colbert and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert has sparked such intense debate across television, politics, and media circles. For nearly a decade, Colbert dominated late-night television. His show averaged millions of viewers every night, topped ratings year after year, and finally earned the Emmy recognition many believed it deserved long ago. Yet despite all of that success, CBS made the shocking decision to end the program entirely. Not replace it. Not reboot it. End it. And the timing raised eyebrows immediately. Colbert reportedly learned the news while away on vacation. Executives at CBS had already been discussing the future of the show behind closed doors, while the host himself remained unaware. When he finally returned to New York, he chose to announce the cancellation personally before the network could release its own carefully managed statement. The moment stunned his audience inside the Ed Sullivan Theater. Viewers expected changes someday, of course. Every television era eventually ends. But few expected America's highest-rated late-night franchise to vanish so abruptly. Even more surprising was Colbert's reaction. He wasn't angry on stage. He wasn't dramatic. Instead, he thanked the hundreds of employees who worked on the program and quietly admitted he wished someone else could inherit the show after him. That single sentence changed the emotional tone of the entire story. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about one host leaving television. It was about the disappearance of a cultural institution that had existed since the days of David Letterman in the early 1990s. And then came the controversy. Just days before the cancellation became public, Colbert openly criticized Paramount, CBS's parent company, over a reported settlement involving Donald Trump and a dispute connected to a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. On air, Colbert described the payment in language many viewers interpreted as accusing the company of bending under political pressure. 3 days later, CBS canceled the show. Coincidence? That became the question dominating headlines. Critics immediately pointed to the timing. Political figures, media analysts, and entertainment insiders openly wondered whether the decision was influenced by larger corporate interests surrounding Paramount's merger plans and ongoing government scrutiny. Others argued the explanation was far simpler: money. And to be fair, the financial side of this story cannot be ignored. Late-night television is no longer the powerhouse business it once was. The world has changed dramatically since the golden era of network talk shows. Younger audiences consume clips online instead of watching full broadcasts. Advertising revenue has shifted toward streaming and social media platforms. Even viral success on YouTube often benefits digital platforms more than the television networks creating the content. Reports suggested Colbert's show was losing tens of millions of dollars annually despite its ratings success. That sounds impossible at first. How can the #1 show lose money? But television economics in 2026 look very different from television economics in 2006. Large production staffs, celebrity bookings, expensive New York studio operations, and declining traditional advertising have created enormous financial pressure across the entire late-night industry. CBS had already downsized once before when it replaced James Corden with cheaper programming in the later time slot. Still, many observers remain unconvinced that finances alone explain why Colbert's exit happened so suddenly. Especially because CBS reportedly moved quickly toward replacing the slot with lighter entertainment that avoids heavy political commentary altogether. So was this a business decision? Or a message? That uncertainty is precisely what has kept people talking. But perhaps the deeper reason this story resonates has less to do with politics and more to do with who Stephen Colbert became to audiences over the years. Unlike many television personalities, Colbert's life story carried real weight long before fame arrived. At just 10 years old, he lost his father and 2 brothers in a devastating plane crash. It was the kind of tragedy that could permanently destroy a family. Yet Colbert has often spoken about how his mother taught him not to become consumed by bitterness. That lesson shaped nearly everything that followed. Years later, after studying theater and comedy, he joined Chicago's legendary improv scene and eventually found success on The Daily Show alongside Jon Stewart. From there came The Colbert Report, where he created one of the most recognizable political comedy personas in television history. But taking over for David Letterman in 2015 was a completely different challenge. And many people doubted him. Could a man known for playing an exaggerated character suddenly become a genuine late-night host? Could he survive replacing a television legend? At first, the answer appeared uncertain. When Stephen Colbert stepped behind the desk at CBS to take over The Late Show, the atmosphere surrounding him felt strangely tense. On paper, the move looked historic. He had already built a reputation as one of the sharpest political satirists in American entertainment. His years on The Colbert Report had turned him into a cultural force. Millions already knew his humor, his timing, and his intelligence. But late-night television is cruel to newcomers, even famous ones. Especially when they inherit a throne once occupied by a legend. For decades, David Letterman had defined the identity of the Ed Sullivan Theater. To many viewers, he wasn't simply a host. He was part of their routine, their evenings, even their memories. Entire generations had fallen asleep to his sarcasm and unpredictable interviews. So when Colbert arrived, audiences weren't just evaluating him. They were comparing him. Every single night. And during those early months, the pressure showed. The ratings stumbled. Critics questioned whether Colbert had made a mistake leaving the exaggerated conservative character that made him famous. Some reviews argued he seemed trapped between personalities, not fully the old Colbert, yet not entirely comfortable as himself either. Was he too intellectual for mainstream late-night audiences? Was he trying too hard to appear polished? Or had television itself already changed beyond repair? The uncertainty became part of the conversation surrounding the show. Entertainment writers dissected every monologue. Social media clips spread criticism faster than praise. Industry analysts openly wondered whether CBS had gambled on the wrong successor. For a while, nobody seemed completely sure. Then American politics shifted dramatically. The 2016 presidential election didn't merely reshape Washington. It reshaped television, comedy, journalism, and public conversation all at once. Suddenly, late-night hosts were no longer expected to provide harmless entertainment alone. Audiences wanted emotional release. They wanted outrage, analysis, disbelief, and humor mixed together. And almost overnight, Colbert found clarity. Something clicked. His monologues became sharper, more fearless, and more personal. The uncertainty faded from his delivery. Instead of appearing cautious, he leaned fully into confrontation and commentary. He stopped trying to imitate traditional late-night formulas and instead created something emotionally charged and deeply connected to the national mood. Audiences noticed immediately. Viewers who once seemed uncertain suddenly became fiercely loyal. Clips from his opening monologues spread across the internet by morning. Discussions from the show entered workplaces, family dinners, and political conversations. Within a year, Colbert rose to the top of the ratings. Soon he wasn't merely competing. He was dominating. Night after night, season after season, millions continued tuning in. For 9 consecutive seasons, his show remained the most watched program in late-night television. Think about how extraordinary that really is. Television audiences today are fractured beyond recognition. Streaming platforms pull viewers in every direction. Younger generations consume entertainment through short clips rather than full broadcasts. Attention spans shrink. Loyalty disappears quickly. Yet somehow, Colbert maintained consistency in an era built on instability. How many television personalities today can honestly claim that kind of sustained influence? Very few. But ratings alone don't fully explain why audiences connected so deeply to him. The real difference appeared during conversations. Colbert possessed a quality that increasingly felt rare on television: curiosity. He didn't simply wait for his turn to speak. He listened carefully. Guests often arrived expecting another routine celebrity interview filled with rehearsed jokes and promotional talking points. Instead, many found themselves pulled into surprisingly thoughtful discussions. When Joe Biden spoke about grief and loss, the exchange felt painfully human. There were moments when viewers almost forgot cameras were present. Colbert, who had experienced devastating personal tragedy himself after losing his father and brothers in a plane crash during childhood, understood grief in a deeply personal way. That understanding changed the tone completely. The audience could feel it. When Dua Lipa appeared on the show, the conversation drifted beyond music promotion into discussions about spirituality, identity, and belief systems. It felt less like publicity and more like genuine curiosity between two people from entirely different worlds. Even casual viewers recognized the difference immediately. Colbert created moments that felt unscripted in an industry built almost entirely on scripting. And perhaps that explains why the cancellation shocked so many people. At first, the rumors sounded impossible. How could the most successful late-night show in America suddenly disappear? How could a host with awards, ratings dominance, celebrity relationships, and cultural relevance lose his platform? The questions spread rapidly online. Some viewers assumed the reports had to be exaggerated. Others believed negotiations were happening privately behind the scenes. Surely a compromise would emerge. Surely CBS wouldn't walk away from one of its strongest remaining television brands. But then the announcements became official. And suddenly, late-night television experienced something unusual. Unity. Normally, the industry thrives on competition. Hosts fight endlessly for ratings, guests, headlines, and viral moments. Rivalries have defined late-night culture for generations. Yet after news of Colbert's departure spread, competing hosts publicly rallied around him almost immediately. Jimmy Kimmel voiced support. Jimmy Fallon did the same. Seth Meyers joined the growing chorus. John Oliver also appeared during the emotional final stretch. That mattered more than many viewers realized. Because inside entertainment industries, respect is often hidden behind politeness and contracts. Public praise can sometimes feel performative. But this felt different. There was genuine emotion underneath it. Many inside television viewed Colbert as part of the final generation of traditional network hosts who still believed late-night programming could challenge authority instead of merely distracting audiences from reality. That idea once defined the genre itself. For decades, late-night hosts acted almost like national pressure valves. They mocked presidents, exposed hypocrisy, reflected cultural anxiety, and translated frustration into humor people could process. Could that style of television still survive in today's corporate media environment? Or had it become too risky? Those questions quietly lingered beneath the cancellation story. Then came one of the most emotional moments of all. David Letterman returned to the Ed Sullivan Theater. For longtime viewers, the symbolism felt overwhelming. Letterman wasn't merely revisiting a building. He was revisiting an entire era of television history. The theater itself carried decades of memories, laughter, interviews, scandals, and cultural moments that once united millions of Americans simultaneously. When Letterman appeared beside Colbert, reports described the atmosphere inside the studio as electric. Some audience members reportedly cried. Others simply stood in silence. Because everyone understood what the moment represented. Not just the ending of a show. The fading of a tradition. And then the guest lineup for Colbert's final episodes pushed the emotional weight even further. Major stars arrived one after another. Steven Spielberg appeared. Bruce Springsteen joined the farewell celebration. Tom Hanks sat beside Colbert. Julia Louis-Dreyfus returned. Pedro Pascal also participated. Why would so many influential celebrities prioritize appearing during a farewell run? Because they recognized something larger than cancellation. It felt historic. Almost symbolic. Many of those guests had spent years visiting late-night television to promote films, albums, and projects. They understood how deeply these shows once shaped entertainment culture. A strong appearance on a late-night couch could define public perception overnight. But the media landscape changed. Now attention is scattered across podcasts, live streams, TikTok clips, YouTube interviews, and endless social feeds. Younger audiences rarely consume entertainment collectively anymore. Everyone watches something different at different times. That fragmentation changed celebrity culture itself. So perhaps Colbert represented one of the final hosts capable of generating old-fashioned national conversation, the kind where millions watched the same moment together. And audiences between 40 and 65 especially felt that loss intensely. Why? Because they remembered when late-night television mattered differently. They remembered hosts challenging political leaders directly. They remembered cultural moments born from monologues and interviews instead of algorithms. They remembered an era when television still felt shared rather than isolated. For those viewers, Colbert's departure felt personal. Not because they agreed with every political opinion he expressed, but because he represented continuity, a familiar nightly voice during chaotic years. And ironically, the cancellation may ultimately strengthen his legacy instead of weakening it. History rarely remembers executives who make controversial corporate decisions. Most audiences cannot name the individuals responsible for canceling beloved shows decades ago. But they remember personalities. They remember voices that helped them through difficult periods in life. They remember entertainers who felt authentic in increasingly artificial media environments. Authenticity became Colbert's greatest strength over time. That authenticity didn't emerge from perfection. In fact, part of his appeal came from visible vulnerability. He could shift from sharp political satire to deeply emotional reflection within minutes. One moment audiences laughed at absurd headlines. The next moment they watched genuine empathy during serious interviews. How many hosts still risk emotional sincerity on national television? Not many. Modern entertainment often rewards detachment instead. Yet Colbert repeatedly allowed viewers to see intellectual passion, grief, curiosity, spirituality, and even uncertainty. That emotional openness built trust with audiences over years. And perhaps that's why the final weeks of the show generated such strong reactions online. Viewers weren't just losing a comedian. They felt like they were losing a companion. Someone who had narrated stressful years filled with elections, pandemics, cultural division, economic anxiety, and non-stop political chaos. Night after night, he helped millions process it emotionally through humor. That connection matters. Even now, debates continue about why the cancellation happened at all. Was it purely financial? The television industry certainly faces enormous pressure. Advertising revenue continues shrinking. Streaming competition grows more brutal every year. Producing nightly network television remains extremely expensive. From a business perspective, executives likely saw troubling long-term trends. But many viewers remain unconvinced that finances alone explain everything. Why cancel the highest-rated show? Why remove one of the few remaining late-night programs still capable of generating consistent national attention? Was Colbert becoming too politically unpredictable? Did corporate leadership fear controversy more than declining ratings? Or was this simply a cold business decision happening during a collapsing entertainment era? The ambiguity fuels public fascination. Because the story taps into larger anxieties far beyond one television host. People increasingly wonder which voices corporations still feel comfortable amplifying publicly. They wonder whether outspoken personalities remain valuable assets or dangerous liabilities. They question whether modern media companies prioritize safety over authenticity. And those concerns extend far beyond television. Meanwhile, Colbert himself appears far less defeated than many expected. Long before the cancellation became public, he had already explored creative opportunities outside traditional late-night broadcasting. One project attracting enormous curiosity involves connections to the expanding The Lord of the Rings universe, tied to his lifelong admiration for J.R.R. Tolkien and collaborations associated with Peter Jackson. Fans have known about this side of Colbert for years. Beneath the political humor always existed something else entirely. A passionate enthusiast capable of discussing fantasy literature with remarkable depth. During interviews and convention appearances, he often displayed encyclopedic knowledge of Tolkien's world, languages, mythology, and themes. That surprised some viewers initially. How could the same man delivering aggressive political monologues also spend hours discussing Middle-earth lore? But perhaps that contradiction made him even more compelling. He wasn't easily reducible to a single identity. Comedian, political commentator, storyteller, fantasy scholar, interviewer, Catholic thinker, television host. He carried all of those dimensions simultaneously. And maybe that complexity explains why his audience remained so loyal. People sensed there was a real person beneath the performance. So perhaps this ending isn't entirely tragic after all. Maybe it's transitional. Maybe Colbert himself understands something many viewers still resist accepting. The old late-night television model may already be fading permanently. If that's true, then his departure becomes more than entertainment news. It becomes a symbol of cultural transition, the end of one communication era, and the uncertain beginning of another. Still, the larger questions refuse to disappear. If the most successful late-night host in America can lose his platform despite ratings success, awards recognition, celebrity support, and loyal audiences, what does that reveal about the future of television itself? What happens when cultural institutions no longer believe stability guarantees survival? And perhaps most importantly, what kind of voices will major corporations continue supporting in the years ahead? Voices that challenge audiences, or voices that avoid risk entirely? That debate may continue long after the lights finally go dark inside the Ed Sullivan Theater. Because in the end, people may not remember every joke Stephen Colbert told, but they will remember what he represented. A reminder that television, at its best, once tried to do more than entertain. It tried to say something worth hearing.